Hey, welcome to the Dr. Lisa Sulsenti podcast. I'm Dr. Lisa, and today we are going to talk about seed oils and try to really just go through a few misconceptions and help you out when you're picking things out in the grocery store or the food market, wherever, and try to lead you in the right direction with this topic. So the way I see it is it's a new fad, it's going around, don't have seed oils, don't have seed oils. However, for me, it's not a new topic. It's been around for a really long time. As you guys know, did my undergraduate degree in nutrition and dietetics, and then I went and got my doctorate in chiropractic, and I also have my certification and degree in functional medicine. So if we go way back to the beginning, and I don't want to age myself, but I'm probably going to here, is 1991 to ish, and I was getting my nutrition and dietetics degree, and we were taught back then that these oils that were bad were the ones that are made in a lab. So, and we actually did this in one of our labs. I may have talked about this in one of these podcasts when we were talking about fats and talking about hydrogenated fats, hydrogenated oils. And what when you see on the ingredients, so let's talk about a label for a second. When you're looking at a label, the cover of the package, so if you're looking at, let's say, potato chips, because I think that's one's the most obvious. If you're looking at a bag of chips or potato chips, and you're looking at the front, that's all marketing, right? You could read that, but really that doesn't really give you the most information. If you turn it over, you're going to see two sections, and one section is going to be more of the nutritional information, giving you the serving size, how many calories is in something, carbs, fats, proteins, and they might have some vitamins. I don't really think the chips are going to have much, but that's kind of the nutrition label. And we could go over that at another time, but it's really not as significant in what this podcast is about. Where you want to go is the word ingredients, and then you want to see what makes up this chip or this product. Even if you're looking at, like, let's say a granola bar or a breakfast bar, any kind of food product. Even if you're looking at a cookie, right? You're going to turn the box or the package over, and you want to look at the word ingredients. And the United States doesn't really do this well. I noticed this when I was in Italy. They do it better because they kind of give you the title of the word, and like they'll say coloring, and then they'll give you the word. And then the next thing might say flavoring, and then they'll give you the word. So you kind of know what the word goes with. So I kind of like that when I was reading labels in Europe, that they'll give you the word, right? But a lot of these words are big scientific words, and so if you don't know them, you've got to Google them anyways. But in Europe, they kind of give you the, like, it'll say flavoring colon, and then it might say, like cinnamon. So you kind of know, right? That's not really a good example, but I'd have to go look. Or it might say emulsifier, and then it might say something like polysorbate. So that's kind of, you just kind of know. I don't know what polysorbate is, but it's telling me it's an emulsifier. So it's kind of that idea. Anyway, if you go to the ingredients of the United States, it's really just going to list a bunch of words. That's my point. And that's where you can see some of these synthetic words I'm about to mention. That's where I want you to look, because I know this is an audio podcast, but what I need you to do is be a food detective in the food store. And that's what this podcast is going to be about, is for you to look for them. And in this dietetic degree back in the 90s, we were learning that when they alter something in the lab, and today they could probably do it a little differently. They have different words, they change the words. But in general, when you're altering something that is natural and you bring it into the lab and you change it, they call it adulterated, but I don't like that word, so I just say alter. They change it. And they're going to make something synthetic, which is really interesting thing, because if you think about it, the natural thing that they brought into the lab, the body probably recognizes if it's in its natural state, if it's in its God-given state. you're going to like probably recognize what it is. I've used this example as butter because that's the thing that we actually changed in the lab. We had butter. Butter's natural, right? It's coming from the cow. You're whipping up the milk. You're making some cream. And so it's natural. Most likely the body's going to recognize that if it's not been altered yet, right? If it's not been processed and changed. So if it was in the normal, natural, God-given state, the proteins in there and the ingredients in there are natural, and the body is most likely, the chemistry of the body is going to recognize it. The immune system of the body is going to recognize it. But then what we did with butter is we actually add hydrogen molecules to it. And that's what the word hydrogenated means, is you added hydrogen to it. And we changed it into this plastic looking stuff called margarine. And margarine actually was one chemical bond away from plastic. And it looked like plastic. So you went from this, fluffy, buttery thing that was, natural, and we changed it. We added hydrogen to it, and we got this thing called margarine. And if we changed it one more step, we would have gotten plastic. So this is what I wanted to give you, that idea, and that idea in your brain, in your mind, in your mind's eye, because that's what is being done today in a very general sense to food. And there's also another field in the labs of where they use chemicals to get flavorings. So you'll also see that in the ingredients, right? When you're like, why does the potato chip taste like cinnamon, but there's no cinnamon in here? It's really a bad example, cinnamon potato chips. But, why does, how Lay's, you can go in there, and every year they used to have like, pick the flavor, and people would be like, oh, it's going to be, pickles and ice cream, or it's going to be, I don't know, some weird flavor, and the person would win, whoever picked the flavor wins something. But you can look at Lay's potato chips, and you can look at all the weird flavorings that they have. And then when you look it in there, it doesn't even have, like, if it say it was jalapeno, there's no jalapeno peppers in there. What they can do in the lab, which I think is actually amazing, and this has a lot to do with biochemistry, is that they can make flavors, from chemicals. So that's in there too. And that's a whole industry. And I'm not getting into that right now. When I'm getting into seed oils, and the reason I'm talking about this is because a lot of the seed oils and the bad oils are these things that have been changed in the labs. They're synthetic, they're man-made, they're lab-made, however you want to put it, industrialized. That's the things that when they're in the body, we know this for a fact, and I've learned this again back in the 90s, is they behave like a bad thing in the bloodstream. So if you want to think of it as like spitballs, you kid, I don't know if forgive me if someone young is listening who doesn't know what spitball is, but it was definitely a part of my childhood. If, you were to take a little piece of paper, put it in your mouth, get it all wet, and then we used to put them in straws, and you could spit it, but you could throw it, and it will stick, right, to the wall, right? It could stick. So if you we used to do it with straws. If you had a straw, the paper of the straw, you could actually put in your mouth and wet it, and then put it back in the straw and blow it and spit it. You would shoot it maybe at your friend or your sibling. I got hit with them. But if it hit the wall, if the spitball hits the wall, it sticks. And so you could also think of maybe paste, I know that was another thing. Like if you made Play-Doh or dough and you could throw it at the wall, it'll stick. So that's the idea of some of these seed oils that are bad, these oils that are bad, these fats that are bad, is that they will stick in the arteries. And that's the best example I can give you, and that's what we were taught. Where a healthy oil or a healthy seed oil or a healthy fat will do the opposite. It's more like flowing. It's just flowing through the arteries, almost like water does. They're very buoyant. It flows through there, and it actually will help clean up the bad stuff. And this is HDLs, the good cholesterol goes in and cleans things up. It's a mopper upper. Cholesterol is a mopper upper. So it's going to clean things. But plaque is the sticky thing, right? That's going to harm the arteries. So where does that come from in seed oils? What does seed oils have to do with it? All right, so here's where we're going to go with this. And this might sound obvious, so I apologize if this podcast is simplistic and obvious, but I want to try to really bring this idea of healthy versus man-made. if you're, and I talk about this all the time with my patients, and they're just like, thank you so much for saying this. They go, oh my gosh, this helps me so much, which is why I was driven today to talk about it on the podcast. So this is really coming from, the last couple months of just really working with patients one-on-one, and this topic they really appreciate. So if you're looking at seeds, and if you're doing work with me on the leaky gut, I have a list of seeds that are really helpful. I have a list of foods that are therapeutic to the gut. So if you're working with me and we find out you have a leaky gut, I have to give you a list of foods that are going to help the gut heal and repair. It's really about repair. So if I want to rebuild the gut wall for you, if we want to help your gut get better, function better, repair the damage that's in there, you've got to eat foods that are therapeutic to the gut, that are specifically known to help repair the gut wall. And so I give you a list of that and just say, these are the things I want you to eat more of. I want you to include these more in your choices and in your diet, because they will help repair the gut wall and help restore the gut function. So if we look at seeds, when we're doing this talk together, I'm going to show you which ones are really good for the gut wall. However, I have to pause when I talk about this, because I'm like, if you're going to have, let's say, a sesame seed or a sunflower seed or a pumpkin seed, let's just talk about those three, or a flax seed, right? That's actually a really good one for you. They have oils in them. They have omegas in them. They have omega-6s, omega-3s, but they have healthy oils. So if you were to eat a trail mix, nuts are the same thing here, by the way. I actually should get into nuts, but I know this is a seed oil, but the theory kind of goes with nuts and seeds. And I go through the most therapeutic, that's why I call it the kind gut. It's which foods are kindest to the gut. And we go over the nuts, and we go over the seeds, and we go over the spices. But when I'm looking at the seeds in general, I'll say to them, if you're going to have, let's say, flaxseed, or if you're going to have sunflower seeds, or you're going to have pumpkin seed, or if you're going to have a seed that's not even on my list, right? I'm going to tell you that it's natural. It's good. These are the healthy fats. Trail mix. Healthy. So these are the healthy fats. If you're going to have flax, if you're going to have chia seeds, if you're going to have hemp seeds, you're going to have, like, again, the ones that we were mentioning, any of them, right? If you're having seeds in its natural form, in its God-given form, it's growing in the wild, right? It's got healthy fats in it. So I have people going, but I shouldn't have flax because it has seed oils in it, right? And I'm like, no. The seed oils that we're talking about that are bad are the synthetic stuff made in a lab. And you find those on the ingredients part of the packaging. So when you're just eating like sunflower seeds, let's say you grew a sunflower plant and you get the seeds and you take the seeds off the plant, that is in the most purest, most natural, most God-given form it can be in. Your body recognizes those. So unless you're allergic to it, and you genetically, for some reason, have an allergic reaction to sunflowers, it's pretty healthy. I mean, yeah, can the sunflower maybe have been sprayed? Yeah, there's some questions there in the field if somebody used pesticides and herbicides. We're not getting into that. I'm just saying basically the sunflower seed is super healthy and it has healthy fats, and it's going to help flow through the arteries, and it's going to help clean up, the bad fats, and it's going to be really good for, let's say, preventing heart disease, preventing cancer, preventing inflammation, preventing problems with the ovaries and the thyroid. And it's really, believe it or not, some of these seeds, women and men, are part of something called seed cycling. So it's a big thing we do with hormone therapy is I have you cycle seeds, certain seeds for the first 2 weeks. You can look up seed cycling. It's for hormone balance, and we do it with all stages, all seasons of life. So even if you're not getting your period anymore, we still do seed cycling. So they have a cycling for women, they have a cycling for men. And it's seeds, people. It's seeds. So it's going to help hormones and the glands, all the hormonal glands in the body. It's going to help the gut. It's going to help the brain. It's going to help everything. They're good. Seed oils are good. That's what this is about. Now, we are very good in this country of taking something God made that is so, so good for you and changing it into something that might be Moderately bad for you, like think of a traffic light. Green, great. Yellow, maybe not so great. Red, we're really good at making the red. Like changing something that's so healthy and making it so not healthy. And there is the middle of the road too. So let's talk about that. Okay. So when you're buying seeds, let's just say sunflower seeds, because I think that's the easiest one. It's the most common one, or pumpkin seeds. Yeah, I make this mistake all the time. So please don't think that I'm perfect here, because I still make this mistake, and I can't believe I still do it. I drive myself crazy. And this is for nuts too. If you were going to eat nuts in the wild, because they have the healthy oils in them too, nut oils. Let's say peanuts, and you just found peanuts, right? Or you're gonna walnuts, and they're in the wild. You're cracking them open, pistachios, and you're cracking them open. You're eating them, really, really in the green. Okay. Now, when you're going to buy the sunflower seeds or the nuts, you're gonna turn them over. You're gonna look at the ingredients, and this is where you've got to pay attention. You could look at the front, but the front is so confusing. But to really want to go to the ingredients. And this is what I'm trying to bring forth. This is an area where they could ruin a beautiful seed. So if we're looking at sunflower seeds and they say roasted, here's where it goes crazy. Did they dry roast it, or did they roast it in a bad oil? A bad seed oil. So did they take a beautiful seed and then roast it in a bad seed oil and destroy it? Like, it's crazy thinking. It's actually crazy. But if you see, let's say, canola oil, which is actually a bad oil, if you see partially hydrogenated palm oil, if you see a bad oil, you've taken a beautiful sunflower seed and you've roasted it in a bad seed oil, a bad vegetable oil. Okay? So that is where it goes bad. And now you have to say to yourself, well, which is bad, Dr. Lisa? Is it the hydrogenated vegetable oil or seed oil? Or is it the whole product? Should I not be having sunflower seeds that are roasted in it? Both. My answer is both. You want to, when you buy sunflower seeds, because they have the healthy fats in them, right? They have the healthy oils. You want to just have it plain Jane. I'm always going to say, I always say how God made it, how nature made it, like how it should be in the wild. It's how you should look for it. So if you're buying a bag of sunflower seeds, you turn it over, it just says sunflower seeds. That's the ingredient. Done. If you have to get it roasted, let's say because you like that flavoring better, or that's all you can find, it should be dry roasted, which is mean they just kind of roasted it underneath, they kind of baked it. They did it under, with heat. So dry roasted or plain Jane. You don't want to see salt. You don't want to see sugar. You don't want to see some kind of bad oil there. A seed oil or a vegetable oil, that's where the bad oils are, is in that ingredient section. And isn't it crazy that they could take, they can do this with peanuts, something that's pretty healthy and just pretty simplistic, right? A walnut, very healthy. Actually, black walnuts are the number one thing to help get rid of toxins and things like parasites. So it's super, super, black walnuts are like medicinal. So, but if you go and roast these nuts in these, and this is what I do all the time, guys. I pick up a package. I run through the food store and I pick up a package because I see it on sale, or I'm like, oh, great, these are great. This is a great price. I want to get some cashews. And I buy them because I make some of my own cashew milk. I make some of my own almond milk, and I'll just buy them. And I just was rushing, and my brain didn't go, Lisa, just look at the ingredients. It's the most important part of what you're buying. And I get home and I'm like, why are these so salty? And I look and it's salted. Or I saw roasted, I grab, because the front will say roasted, people. So you grab it and I go, okay, roasted. All right, dry roasted. And I turn it over and I'm eating them at home and I go, oh, here's some of the bad oils. Right? And some of them are bad seed oils, and it's very confusing because you're like, why did I buy pumpkin seeds and they're roasted in like a soybean oil, a partially hydrogenated, sometimes it'll say, it's weird. So some of these oils aren't healthy. Yes. Some of these seed oils are bad. Some of these vegetable oils are bad for sure. but they're typically, when you read the ingredients, they've been altered. So that's the trick there. Okay, so that's really in a nutshell. I guess pun intended there. But the last place I want you to do is go back to the potato chips and look in the ingredient aisle and see what oils they're using. Are they using bad seed oils? Are they using bad vegetable oils? Are they hydrogenated in it? Look for the word partially, look for the word hydrogenated. You can also research on your own which are some of the bad oils. I know that when I was in Europe and we did olive oil, completely different olive oil, different types of olives, all done locally. Different. I'm going to do a podcast on olive oil and different oils because it's really in the processing of the oil that the oil can get very denatured and very bad. Just kind of like when we process wheat here, we destroy it, we denature it. So you have to be careful about just oils in general, but we're going to do a podcast on different oils that you would go to the grocery store and pull an olive oil or a canola oil, or avocado oil off the shelf, and how do you navigate that? That's a whole nother different podcast. And like I said, I like to keep these short and sweet so you can learn a little bit of snippets from me while you're driving your car, or you're cooking, or you're, working out, or whatever you're doing. And you can really retain this information. I just believe that that 20 to 30 minute mark is really allowed for you to grab what I'm saying and think about it. But in general, that's where you want to be careful with these oils. You just really want to be careful right now. Read the ingredients, look for it. And, I want to say something about the nuts, because this is really interesting. And this is a really example of what I was talking about. I'm going to wrap it up with this. When we talked about the traffic light and you have green, yellow, red. Here's the red. I haven't been to Whole Foods in a while because I tend to use a little bit of the farmer markets near me. And they used to have, and I don't know if they have it, you can let me know if they still have, it looks like a big coffee grinder. So when you're in the nut aisle, they have these bins where they had all the nuts, and the seeds, and they're, again, in their raw form. And if you want to make peanut butter, I'm going to use peanuts, but you could do almond butter, you can make hazelnut butter, you can take any of the nuts and the seeds and put them through this grinder and make like a butter. And what it does is it just grinds it up, almost like if you put it in a food processor, and out comes this butter. They don't add oils to it. Here's my point. They don't add the oils to it. The natural oil of whatever you picked, if you pick the almonds, it's going to have its own natural seed oils in it, or nut oils. I guess it wouldn't be a seed oil, it'd be a nut, right? So you put it in the grinder. You could do this in your food processor, and you can make your own butter. So that's really in the green. That's as natural as you possibly could do. You took the nut that is raw and wholesome, God-given, God-made, like beautiful, and you put it in a grinder and it made it into a butter, right? It changed the form of it, right? From a nut to a butter. Green, go, awesome. Now, how did like companies ruin that? Like something like, is it Skippy and Jif? I don't even know because I don't buy them. But is it like Skippy and Jif and like the things we grew up on? They're nasty. They're in the red. You read what's in those. They use really bad oils. They use salt. They use sugar. I've even seen some with like some kind of coloring. They use a lot of weird stuff. Companies have gotten a little better. They've kind of realized that we've caught on. So some companies might have a version that's healthier. I'm not knocking that. But really start reading the nut butter sections as well as the nuts and the seed packaging. And you're going to learn a lot. Now, if you wanted to make, okay, so now there's the ones that are separated, right? So the green is really, you just take your nuts, you make your own nut butter, use that nut machine if they still have it in Whole Foods. It's almost like a coffee grinder. You can make your own by putting it in a food processor. And if you want, because it's too thick, you might be like, oh, this is just too thick. You can add a little of your own healthy, clean, super healthy, top of the line oil. An extra virgin olive oil you could add to it. You could add your own little oil there as you're food processing it to make it a little thinner. But you have to dump a lot. I make hazelnut. Hazelnut butters like this. I can make my Nutella recipe is seriously this. You just take hazelnuts, you make the butter, you add a little bit of oil to thin it out, and you add unsweetened, really high quality cocoa and a little 100% maple syrup. And you can add vanilla if you want. And that's it. That's how you make like a chocolate Nutella or a chocolate hazelnut butter. Same thing, by the way. You can make chocolate almond butter, peanut butter. You just add a little high quality unsweetened cocoa to the food processor where it's mixing up the nut and or the sunflower, because if you can't have nuts, you could do a seed butter, and that's it. You just throw these things in the food processor. Add a little oil, make it thinner if you want, and you don't have to. You could literally just food process it, and there's your butter. But if it's too thick, add the oil, and if you want the chocolate, the recipe is going to be high quality unsweetened cocoa with the maple syrup and the vanilla. So that I just gave you three really good recipes, right? So in the middle of the story, when you're in the food aisle, you're going to see the nut butters that are separated. And then some of the organic ones do this. You see the peanut butter on the bottom and the oil on the top, right? Because there's no emulsifier. So why is Skippy not got the oil on the top and the peanut butter on the bottom? But when you look at it, again, some of these companies might have their own version. But if you look at the more natural one, you see the peanut butter on the bottom, the oil on the top. Now, that's because in order for something, even like dressing, where you see the oil and the vinegar separated, they didn't put an emulsifier in there. An emulsifier is actually taking two things and putting them together so it's even, it's congruent, it's smooth, it's mixed, it's perfect, right? So oil and water don't mix. So a fat and water is not going to mix. So if you're looking at a dressing, it's really easy to understand this when you try to put vinegar in the oil and then add water. They all separate. If you put it all together and whip it up and then put it in a jar and let it sit, they're going to separate by density. So that's kind of what happens here with the peanut butter. You can mix it if you want, but it's usually going to separate with the peanut butter on the bottom, the oil on the top. And then if you put an emulsifier in there, it will... and you mix it all up, it'll keep it mixed. It'll hold it all together, and it's going to keep it nice and smooth. So that's when you see like peanut butter or nut butters all smooth and creamy and not separated. And same with dressings. Emulsifier would be like lecithin. Lecithin can be made from soy. Lecithin can be made from egg. And I believe the polysorbates. You can see those are words in the ingredients. So if you look at the one that's smooth, you'll see the emulsifier in the ingredient. And if you see the one separated, it won't be in there. Now, is all that oil healthy? That's the question. So you also have to look at, okay, I see the oil on the top. I see the nut on the bottom. What oil is that? Okay. Is that a healthy vegetable oil? Is that a healthy seed oil? What oil are they using? And you kind of have to look at the ingredients. That's why I can't keep stressing how the ingredients is really the most important part of the packaging. Okay. Now, where would you put that? I personally would put that, if it's a healthy oil, I probably would put that in the yellow, because if you just took the nuts and you put it in that grinder at Whole Foods, or you put it in your food processor, and you didn't add any oil, it's the healthiest form. It still has its own, healthy fats. It still has its own healthy oils in it. You don't really need to add oil. And if you wanted to add a tiny bit, let's say, of your really, really good olive oil to smooth it out, to make it a little creamier, you're controlling how much goes in there. The other one, I'm not saying it's not healthy, but it's like a yellow for me, because it's just a lot of fat. It's just a lot of fat. And if they're using the wrong oil, I'm going to put it in the red. And then the ones that are, beautifully looking in the packaging, and it's all like a Skippy, read the ingredients on that, I would put that one in a red. So I know I went into peanut butter, but these oils, these seed oils, they kind of go together. You really, really have to read the packaging. And I hope this helps. And this, literally, when you work with me, when I'm going through the list of foods, like where I'm like, okay, these are the things I want you to focus on. These are the ones I want to start adding more into your diet. I go into like a 10-minute conversation about the seeds and And, you know, you'd be with me forever if I spent a half hour on every topic. But like, let's say I go over the vegetables, I'm going to give you the vegetable talk. And then we go into the fruits, I'm going to give you the fruit talk. And if you've worked with me, you're shaking your head right now, like, oh yeah, she does. And then if I get into the meats, we're going to talk about each one and organic versus non-organic. And we're going to talk about wild fish versus farm fish. If you know this, I could go a little, you know, quicker through things. But if you don't, I teach you it. So when you're working with me, why I do differ from a lot of people, somebody asked me that once, well, how are you different from someone else? Or I was doing a survey because I'm going to start creating some online courses for people to make this a little more accessible and make functional medicine a bit more affordable for people. They're like, well, how would your online course be different from anything else? And I was like, because I teach it. I teach it to you so you understand when you're in, so you get it. I want you to have the why. So when you go into the food store, you go into the restaurant, you don't choose the bad things, but you understand why. And it's an easier choice for you because you're like, oh, I don't want that because I understand why that's bad. Instead of someone telling you don't do something and you just are like, oh, I can't do that because she told me not to do that, or it's not on my list so I can't have it. That's not how I teach. So one of the things I really want people to understand is I just don't give you a diet. There's so many people, and if you're one of them, you're shaking your head too. Like if they say, oh, I just need give me a pill for weight loss, or give me a supplement for weight loss, or just give me a diet to help me get better. I don't do that. I teach. I'm all about teaching why this is where I want you to be, why I want you to make these choices, why these choices are so important, and how do those things we're talking about, how do these choices I want you to make, how do they specifically repair something? What changes do they make in the body? Where do they belong in the body? What do they do? And so I try to keep it very simple, but I try to connect the effect. You know, if you eat that, this is what it's going to harm. This is the harm it's going to do. So a little bit of the science behind it. And all right, so I'm going over the 30 minutes that I try to keep it at. So I want to thank you for today, and keep listening. Have a great day.